Hi guys, and welcome to the second session on the Profit First Club. So, a bit of a funny story. Well, not so funny for me really. I actually ran the Profit First Club today at 12 o'clock, and I forgot to hit record. So, so for people watching the recording, or you didn't show up live, it's going to be a quicker, and it might be good news because I won't need to talk quite as much. But I will go through quite efficiently some of the things we covered, and I'll try and do a recap if I can of some of the questions I had at the time. Okay, so just a quick recap on this one on this particular page. By the way, these slides might seem quite similar, but the content is slightly different because the session one was what is Profit First, and this session is how to implement Profit First. So they are quite different, but the slides and everything are going to look quite similar. A lot of months because some people will be joining for the first time, so we need to kind of recap certain things. So eradicating entrepreneurial poverty is one of the is the main mission and cause behind Profit First, and I mentioned to some people in the outside world that might seem a bit kind of I don't know, kind of big-headed, for want of a better word, for business owners, because there's this impression that everyone running a business is killing it. But the fact is, most business owners are probably surviving. We've took it one step further, and we actually want to help people create entrepreneurial freedom. I do actually have a process for this. I do mean this as a mission because I've built my own business up in the last 10 years to be able to take a month off and not become a bottleneck. I'm still very important in my business, but it's trying to create a business where you can have absolute freedom in a structured way to focus on what you enjoy within your business, to work on the stuff that really fascinates you, motivates you, and energizes you as a business owner, not the kind of day-to-day stuff that someone else can do. So I run an accounting firm called CTA Profit First Accountants. We do all the Profit First things. I was voted the Profit First Accountant of the Year in 2022. We are one of only around 30 in the whole of the UK that do Profit First. And I started CTA about 10 years ago, and we now have a team of over half a dozen of us in total. The Profit First Club as a page is on Notion. It's kind of like an intranet site. It's changed a little bit where there's some boxes to give you some shortcuts, but essentially you can access the previous webinars and you can access some nice tools and resources and some Profit First training. So please bookmark that if you haven't already. The recap on Profit First, 60-second recap if you've never heard it before, is that most businesses focus on turnover, and so it's that expression, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity. And actually, as a business grows, they're often growing their problems or scaling their problems, and there's a better way, and it's heavily based on human nature, Parkinson's law, in terms of when there's more of something available, you consume more of it. So if you think you've got more money, you spend more money. When I go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, I tend to eat a lot more food than if it was a smaller plate, and that's all I had. And Profit First really leverages this to tap into our psychology, and it does work, and it's a way of systematically improving the profit and the cash in your business, and it works. I do it in my own business, but you can obviously read the book. If you want more detail on that, you can go to last month's session. If you're a client who's watching this recording, this version of this session, it's a refresh or some preparation for you. If you're a new member, it's going to give you some insights into the more advanced side of Profit First in terms of how to actually implement it. So this is an overview when we work people on a one-to-one basis of what we do. It depends how closely we work with people, but if we've done everything with you as a Profit First kind of coach, being your Yoda, really, you're the Luke Skywalker in this story. We do a profit assessment, which we really drill into where you are now, but we need to understand where you are in your business, percentages wise and numbers wise, to get that clarity to know where we need to go. You really need to understand where we are right now to and be honest with ourselves as a business, and a lot of business owners don't necessarily do that. And then we create TAPS, which is your target allocated percentages. So we have step by step, quarter by quarter, we have a target for you to work towards, a bit like a nutrition plan and gym plan. We'll quickly cover the bank accounts because it's got, as I mentioned, I'll do a nice short and sharp version of the session I ran. We will talk about setting up your custom allocation template, and I will send a template across so you can actually got a tool on a spreadsheet for doing your own allocations, which is basically divvying up your money every week, every 2 weeks, or every day, so you can put it into different bank accounts. Talk about an expenses analysis. Having some sort of accountability around the allocations is one of the things we tend to do. And also a 30-day check-in of how you're getting on is quite important because a lot of people want to give up quite early. And the final thing we do when we work with people is we do a quarterly review to make sure you're moving closer to the end goal. And I'll explain all of this in a bit more detail. Now, so this is one of the most important pages from a profit, from when we create a plan with people in terms of where they need to head towards. We normally look at the last 1 to 2 years to look at your leaks. And in this particular business, if you watch the first session, I talk about some of the numbers in terms of what this all means. But in essence, on the left-hand side, in summary, we've got the actual figures for a business owner, which happen to be 85% operating expenses and 15% owner's pay. And what we're saying next to it is we want to be moving towards 60% operating expenses, 10% tax, 20% owner's pay, 10% profit. So the final, this column here, so 1, 2, 3, fourth column in, ignore the dollar sign, is where we think the operating expenses should be if you are super optimized as a business. And it might seem impossible if you look at your own numbers straight away to achieve this, but it's the whole process of moving closer towards that, and you build the confidence, consistency to actually get closer to that target. And this is based on the same number. So, if you're a 100K business, a 50K business, these gaps, so there's a 74K money leak there. These gaps are based on where you are now. But if you grow your business, there's even more money on the table. So you basically grow, and you could grow you could grow by 100% and potentially quadruple your profits because you're keeping more of the pie. So this is quite a good thing to look at the money leak. I did go into that in the first session. Visually, that's the money on the table. We're trying to move from point A to point B. So we create a roadmap. So I create a roadmap with clients. And if you're looking to do profit first yourself, getting the right percentage to know where you're starting from on the left-hand side, understanding that and knowing where you should be heading on the right-hand side of here is so important. If you have the wrong numbers, it's almost, sort of pointless because you've just got the wrong targets. You need to have the right plan. It's someone who's, let's say someone wants to get from 20 stone to 15 stone, but actually they were already 16 stone, or actually they were 22 stone. So trying to understand where you are. On the left-hand side here, it should be 15 and 85%, not 75 and 25. And then if you look at the bottom, we're trying to systematically go down to 81, 77, 75, and 72. So quarter by quarter, we're trying to rinse that towel and move closer to where we want to be. And I'm seeing people all the time get closer to this. It's the consistency, it's the hard work. Having accountability is huge. It's a big part of this as well. And sometimes the percentages, you need to make sure they're right for you. And sometimes we might change it. I'll speak to someone and say, do you know what? I want to go faster. Or I work with someone and we have to go way faster than this because the business was in such a bad place at the beginning. It really sort of depends on your business. If you're wondering where all these percentages come from, this is one of the this is the benchmark end game figures. So in this example, we were saying that it's a 293K business. So actually you're in the second column. So long term, that business should aim for 40% expenses, not the 60% we're suggesting for the next 2 years. So there's kind of like a medium term goal and a longer term goal. Goals are important, but putting unrealistic timeframes on them to get there, it can really ruin your sort of confidence and your momentum. It's more about changing that lifestyle habit as a business owner and as a business. The bank accounts comes up quite a lot. Ultimately, if it works for you, it works for you. If you're moving money around, you're doing your pots. What I found typically works, though, for us and other people, is you've got your main account. For us, it's Santander. That could be whoever you've used traditionally. It could be Barclays, it could be Santander, it could be HSBC, whoever that is. And you've normally probably got an account with everything going in and out. If you've been running for a few years, and you've probably got a second account that you've put some tax in or some VAT or something. So I would have one as your income, one as your operating expenses, and usually it's easier to change the income and then keep all the expenses in the one account. You definitely want to separate it because it's very important to the psychology behind everything. And then you want second bank, you want something that you can put into pots. So the beauty with something, I say Starling, but it could be Monzo, it could be Metal, because Starling can be a bit fussy. You only need to create one account, and then you can create all these spaces within that account. And they're the accounts you're typically going to have. You can have a VAT one if you're VAT registered, a profit, an owner's pay, and a tax. Longer term, you want to move the profit and tax to a third bank, which is completely out of sight, out of mind. And that is super important because if you don't see it, you don't even know it's there. And you will be amazed the impact that can have. I've seen it in my own business where you don't even know it's there. It just builds up. If I was to say to you, how much tax have you had deducted in the last 3 years, you probably don't necessarily know, but you do know what's been paid into your bank, but that tax has gone somewhere. It's a bit like that, really, or how much money's gone into your pension. Okay, so this is an example of an allocation spreadsheet. I'm going to send a template across by tomorrow when I follow up on this. And but essentially, when it's set up properly, you have the dates and the rhythms on the left hand side. So this example has got 2 week allocations, and then so if you look at the top line, 14th of April, there was £30,000 for argument's sake in their income account. If it's not all in your income account, you might have to figure out what the income would have been, because sometimes people have got one account still, so the balance is not reflective of what the income was. It might be that you've got £5,000 in that account, but actually you've had 10 grand's worth of income, but you've had some expenses go out. So figure out what the income is, and it's a lot easier if you have a dedicated account. Eventually, it's all in there. Put that number in, and if you are VAT registered, you've got to take into account the average VAT you tend to pay. So we kind of look at typically what your VAT bill is over the last few quarters. We look at what hits your bank, and we figure out how much you should set aside. It's better to be a bit careful, put a bit more in. And someone in our call actually mentioned that it was slightly too low in his business and he had to find extra money. So having a review of that early on is probably quite important. I'm not going to go into what the concept of real revenue is because we've done that in the first video. Real revenue is essentially, as a really quick summary, it's obviously VAT is excluded because VAT's not really your money. And also it's after, like, if you had materials or something. So if you were buying and selling goods, there is a column missing in this screenshot. After VAT, there would be a column for cost of goods bought or cost of goods sold. So if you're a builder and you're £1 million business and 400k was materials, your real revenue would be 600k. So there could be something in between if you've got cost of goods to buy and sell. If not, this would be fine. And so you've got real revenue, and then you've got some percentages. These for this example I've got on the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet will automatically figure out your numbers, and then you just put it into your pots, really. The biggest challenge is building that habit, that momentum of actually sticking with those allocations. Really, is probably where we come in. I also recommend you do an expenses analysis. Get a buddy, get someone else to look at this, because normally we're quite emotionally involved with the expenses in our business, or we're blinded to them, to be honest. It's like, I know people talk about vision boards and they're really important, but if it's on your wall all the time, you sometimes don't even notice it's there. So you need a mechanism or something to break that cycle, to force you to review it, and having someone else involved helps. And I mentioned in the meeting that we work for coffee business, and we helped her cut 13k initially. She added some things back on later on because she saw value in them, but it was the equivalent of adding 58k to a top line, because you drop your expenses, it goes straight to your profit. But obviously, if you increase your revenue, you've got to take your overheads and everything off of that. So it was the equivalent of generating 58k by making those cuts. And most people can save 10% of their expenses. So in this business, 3119, 10% would be 3K. Most people can save 10% if you've not done that exercise for some time. The 30-day check-in for the allocations. This is more about what we do. It's quite simply to make sure it's happening, and then we follow up with you and we check in to see if it's happening. It takes a while to build a habit, so people do need a little bit of nudging and pushing. And even if you do it on a small scale, someone in the group who we work with said she's still not quite getting it, and that's where we come in, because if she was doing it herself, she would give up. But because we're around, we're going to have a chat, and we're going to, if we need to adapt it to make it a bit easier, simpler, more small scale, then we can do that with her. Because the fact is, humans don't like change, and we revert to our kind of habit and what we're used to. If you've got someone else to look at it, so when we work with people, we can spot mistakes early. We can identify, point in the direction of quick wins. Often you will find those quick wins because you'll be triggered to think a little bit differently. So the accountability and the mentoring really does supercharge your progress. I've seen that happen. Whereas if you've got none of that, there's no one to, it's a bit like having a gym partner, I guess, in many ways. The final thing we do is a quarterly review meeting, and we basically zoom out, say, where was point A, where do we want to be, which is point B, where are we along that journey, how much closer have we moved, and we celebrate any profit you've got. And it's important to celebrate that profit and use it, because most people don't normally have that money. And we actually compare how much money you've gained. Often I can say to people, you've saved £4,000 in the last quarter since working with us, purely because this is what your percentages were, this is what they are now. And we can actually tangibly identify that money in a lot of cases. And we also zoom out, checking on the bigger picture, and there's a bit of a sounding board comes in, having someone to bounce ideas off. And we can look at strategic things. Often we're discussing things like new sites, gaining a new shop, losing a shop, changing the team structure, adding a new service, completely changing your model. I've seen lots of people have all these things happen, triggered by these sort of conversations that we have as part of these quarterly reviews. Basically, we are the Yoda to your journey. We're the guide. If you're not familiar with Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is the hero, one of the Jedi with the lightsaber. Yoda is the kind of, the guide or the supportive figure, the mentor behind the scenes, and that's where we come into this. But you're the one making all the, making the progress. Why have I gone in? So I've whizzed through this a little bit quicker than, because we did talk for an hour, a bit quicker. Why am I sharing all stuff? Because actually, the value is not in the knowledge. There's some very useful stuff here. The value is in the implementation. So if you can go and do it and implement it, amazing. But if you need some help, then we're more than happy to help and work with you as well. Someone did mention about programs and prices. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but we are positioning Profit First, the Profit First Club, which is not just about Profit First, by the way. I might just have a session every month live to cover people's questions, but we're not going to talk about the same thing every month. Month one was to talk about what is Profit First. Month two, I've just talked to you about how to implement Profit First, and we'll probably delve into some other areas just to break it up a little bit as well. But I want Profit First Club to be self-contained and separate in terms of the value you have. I want you to be able to not be working with us, not paying us, or not using Profit First, or we're just doing bookkeeping and accounting, but Profit First is still relevant and you're getting something out of it, the Profit First Club. But obviously, if you want to work with us and fast forward everything, that's not a problem. Obviously, this is a recording, so there are no questions. One of the questions was, what if my tax bill on my software is higher than my percentage is telling me on the spreadsheet? And I said, very good point, and you shouldn't ignore that fact. But, I work with someone who said, I know 1% is not enough for my tax. I said, okay, that's fine. He said, I need to put 7% aside. And I said, but how much are you putting aside at the moment? And he said, 0%. And I said, okay, it's not realistic to jump that far ahead. Let's start with 1%. Let's make it 2%. And we know there's going to be a shortfall, but we need to build momentum, build a habit. So the accounting side is important. We shouldn't ignore those numbers. It gives us a holistic picture. But the more important thing is not to overcomplicate it, is to build momentum, build that habit. And the beauty of Profit First is it's a cash-based system. So we do want to focus on that. But the accounting, the tax, what is my real VAT quarter, all that bill every quarter, all that stuff is important. And luckily, we're accountants as well as Profit First coaches, advisors. So the holistic view is very helpful, but I wouldn't get stuck on that side of things. And the other thing is, your operating expenses might be squeezed, or you might have to put them up because you're trying to grow your business. But what Profit First has taught me, and I've seen it a lot of times, it makes you be more creative. It makes you think outside the box, not just throwing money and doing the same thing. How can you get leverage with a new service that's actually not going to increase your costs, but it's going to increase your income? So there are sometimes you just have to spend that money and make that investment, but I find Profit First challenges you and it gives you a little bit of a filter just to think, is there a different way of doing this? And it at least delays the expenses so you don't rush in and just like ruin your cash flow. That's definitely a big part of it. Okay, CTA, we are a firm of accountants. We're Profit First certified, but we also provide the outsourced finance team for you. So we do your payroll, your bookkeeping, you can do your VAT. We do some special tax reviews. We call it a tax diagnostic, where we try and identify several £1,000s worth of tax savings. So there's quite a lot of other stuff we do. But Profit First is a big part of what we do because we believe virtually every single business can benefit from that. This is the same slide from last time. What you can do it yourself. You can book an instant assessment, or you can book a chat with us. So you can sort of pause that and look at any of those links. The free stuff, I'm going to send the things I've sent previously. You can access it on Notion, but I will also send an allocation spreadsheet, and I also send you a guide how to do your own instant profit assessment. So finally, I announced this in the meeting. So this is a new thing that we're about to launch. So I have been in mastermind groups, and I have paid as much as £14,000 to be in a mastermind group just for a year. And there's so many different mastermind groups out there. I'm always in 2 or 3 different things myself. I'm a big preacher. I preach what I practice. I practice what I preach. And there's a lot to be said. When I found the right mentors, the right mastermind groups, it has shortcut my progress. And I can give you real examples if anyone wants to speak to me about that. It's the biggest mistake I made in my business was trying to learn everything or do everything myself at the beginning, because often it only takes one person to say one thing that can completely transform your business. And the whole idea behind masterminds started really the book Think and Grow Rich, which was released in the 30s, where Napoleon Hill, the writer, followed Andrew Carnegie, who was the richest man on the planet at the time. He was a steel tycoon. They found out that actually they had friends who had similar ideas, similar ambitions. They thought the same. They were kind of the same tribe. So Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, they all used to meet up, believe it or not. I mean, that's quite mind-blowing to me. And it's where the concept of the mastermind come across. You only need 2 people to have a mastermind. But if you can get the right group, it's even more powerful. The idea is if you've got 2 people, there's kind of a third person or a third mind, because they've got different energies and different ideas, and they trigger different ways of thinking with each other. And if you've got all those connections in a small mastermind group, it can literally be 1 + 1 = 5. So you're kind of multiplying things instead of adding. So the idea with the Profit First Mastermind is it's facilitated by me every month. It's Profit First focused, but not limited. I mentioned that if you're a Profit First client of ours already, this is actually no cost to you. You could just join this, but it's a new thing for new clients and new businesses. It's Profit First focused, but it's not limited. We will delve into just your business journey, your challenges, your wins. We can form a proper mastermind group that can grow into a thing of itself over time. But the 2 things that we're focusing on is we will make sure there is some hands-on Profit First support, because it's the Profit First Mastermind. And a lot of people will learn together. So although I said people are already doing Profit First with me on a one-to-one basis in some capacity, you're welcome to join. You're going to be further ahead in your Profit First journey than someone else who's just joining. So there will still be a profit first focus of that. And the second one, and please do not underestimate this, is what you learn from other people. It often, when someone asks you a question, you have got really good advice for them, but you don't apply it yourself. It just brings a different energy out of you when you're in the room. If you've never been involved in any kind of mastermind, I promise you it could be one of the best things you've ever done. I'm writing about it in my new book, Stop Being a Busy Fool, which is going to be finished by the end of the year, and I will share that with you. So we have an exclusive offer. The access to the Profit First Club. If you're in the mastermind group or any of the other Profit First plans, there's going to be an extra level of resources for you, and these resources are inspired by some of the groups I've been in, and I've spent thousands and thousands of pounds. So rather than you having to go and pay that yourself and take 12 months to learn it, I'm going to share lots of things with you over time. So there will be another level of thinking tools, or what I refer to as intellectual shortcuts or intellectual hacks. Business is an intellectual sport. The better quality of thinking, Nigel at the EC mentions this, but he's not the only one. Keith Cunningham, who's the author of The Road Less Stupid, pretty much pioneered the concept of thinking time. But that's what successful people have in common. And if you can share your thinking, that's where it really accelerates it. So the offer that I mentioned is the mastermind is going to be $199 plus VAT per month. And actually, I think it's pretty much going to go up over time fairly quickly, because I'm extremely confident in the value that's going to deliver. But for anyone who wants to join in 2023, it's only £99 plus VAT per month for the lifetime of your membership, just so we can build up some of the numbers early on. There's no commitment. You don't need to sign your life away. You can quit after 1 month, 3 months, 10 months, stay with it for 10 years. There's no commitment. We want people to see the value and enjoy and get the value from it. So it's only for 2023 at that price, but you will stick at that price. And also, I'm expecting it to be very small. It literally could be a handful of people, if that, at the beginning. Even if it was just one person, if I'm in your mastermind, you're effectively getting my one-to-one support, which I charge as much as $599 a month for. So you cannot lose, even if it's very slow to take off, and you and me are the only two people in this group. You're getting my one-for-one training at 5-6 times cheaper price. But if it's somewhere in between, you're still going to get really good value, because we can go deep into each other's businesses, and there'll be a lot of learnings. And it's limited to 12 places in case there is more of an interest. I'm not doing a big push for this. I'm trying to sort of organically share this and start working with people in this way. That's everything. Email me if you've got any questions. I think that's the right email address. Yeah. If you've got any questions, just reach out, and speak with you soon. I guess the final thing is for anyone else who's not a client of ours, if you just want to have a chat about the other stuff, the accounting, bookkeeping, the payroll, the tax, if you go onto our website, so Cheltenham Tax Accountants, we refer to ourselves as CTA, but that's our old URL. You can book a meeting, and myself or one of the team can have a chat with what we do. Thanks, guys. Cheers.